Mhm.
Okay. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. And would anyone like to move to approve the minutes of the last meeting in July?
I
Um,
guess-
Go ahead, Meg.
Sorry, you can approve Katie and I'll second. How about that?
Perfect. Deal.
Okay.
I think we did this last time too.
It's a race to the button.
Okay, so our first order of business tonight is welcoming our new member, Kathleen Callahan. And we saw you for a minute there.
Hi, Kathleen.
Do you want to tell us about yourself, Kathleen?
Sure. Sorry, I don't usually take these on the phone, so it's a little less than desirable. I've lived in Middleton about 8 years. My husband is essentially a Middleton resident for his entire life, so that's why I've stayed and been in Middleton. My connection to the city, I was on the public safety committee for the last, I think it was like 4 years or 6 years. I think it was, no, it's 4 years. And I still wanted to continue. So I think the Arts Commission is a very good fit for me based on my background and my work, both as a trained musician and as a fundraiser in the arts historically. So that's something I'm aware of, but excited. It feels like, you know, every committee is different. So it's always fun just to get to kind of know people within the city and the work that's being done.
You're our first musician. Most everyone here has a background in fine art of some sort, so it's exciting to have you on.
I think it's good for us. We'll express all of the arts, perhaps.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or anything for Kathleen? If not, then we'll go ahead and move on to our first discussion, which is the Middleton sign at the Quarry Park, which we have been talking about revamping and placing up there along with a safety fence kind of by the skate park. So who would like to start this discussion?
So no one from Sketchworks is present except for me, but I have Fine Art Studios on the line that is going to lead the majority of the discussion. These are just simple renderings that we had at Sketchworks done just to kind of show placement and size related to everything around it. Fine Art Studios has actually gone and picked up one of the letters from the recycling center, and that's what they're here to fill us in on with their assessment and details.
Before that happens, Aaron, is it okay if we just review quickly for Kathleen how this
Thank
design?
you. Yes. Thank you, Katie. Yes, for Kathleen's knowledge on this. So these are the old Middleton Center signs, which that building has, I believe, what it's been 3 years now, 3 or 4 years since it's been torn down, completely replaced. They opted for new letters on top of there, but Abby had this vision for several years now to kind of use these as a a tourism thing for city of Middleton, and like the Hollywood sign almost put up on the hill behind the skate park. So they have been sitting at the recycling center since then. We discussed in previous arts committee meetings what it would take to construct these, which is where Fine Art Studios was brought in as a consultant along with Sketchworks and MP² structural engineers, just to get budgetary information and just, to know the possibilities. The long-term goal is not to light them as they originally were, but to make a call for artists and either have them painted somehow or wrapped like we were doing with the utility boxes. And I think Fine Art Studios will probably have some information for us with the materials they intend to use and what the possibilities are with those materials. All the letters are between 44 and 54 inches tall. I think one of the slides showed kind of a average size person comparison next to them. So should be pretty cool, but we've brought in sign art as a specialist because we want to make sure they both can withstand the elements, but also for liability reasons can be securely placed on that hill. So I will let Dan and Luke, I believe from sign art, are both on the line, and I will let them take over from there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm Dan Yoder with Sign Art Studio. This is Luke Severson. He will be the main point of contact if all this moves forward. Our account executive, at some point we would bring a project manager in, but Luke would handle all the upfront stuff. So just so you guys know who's who, I'm just used wherever I'm needed at Sign Art. So yeah. First of all, thanks, Aaron, and whoever else for thinking of us. This is a neat project. I went to Middleton High School, so I'm very familiar with the sign. Rather iconic to see over the years, and was kind of fun to see. Now they did replace them, right? I live in way out in the country now, so I don't get into Middleton as much anymore. But is there a replacement sign that's up above a roof now?
Yeah, this for,
Yeah, okay.
I believe old electric like wiring and everything, they opted to just create new letters that's on there now.
Cool. So yeah, we picked up a letter. So basically now what those letters are, and can you scroll to image 13, I think it was. It had a good picture of, or slide 13, had a good picture. There's a frame system on the back of it. That's one thing I want to take a look at while we're chatting. I think it was slide 13. Yeah, of the existing letters. There's a picture there.
Oh.
That showed a frame on the back. Okay, cool. So I didn't know that will be helpful. Or is that present on everything? Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here, but some of the letters look like they're on their own and some have a frame system already on there. So anyway, long story short, I'll get back to it, but these, so the letter can, what we call the can, is the back of the letter that you're looking at right now. That's all fabricated aluminum. And then the faces are is acrylic with a trim cap. And so I got a letter here. So here's your can. It's a aluminum formed letter, and then you have a separate piece that's translucent. You actually see how it allows light through it. That goes on the face. So that's what you currently have. This is not super conducive in any way to what you guys are after in terms of like painting on or putting artwork on. You certainly don't want to paint on this. You could apply vinyl to this material, like a digitally printed adhesive back vinyl, but since it's got this lip around the edge, it's really difficult to do that. So what we would want to do based on what your needs are is replace the face with a substrate. We've already identified that you're not going to light it, so that helps a lot. With a substrate that you can either paint directly to, or that we can apply. The other thought I had, which I think would be neat, is it can supply a digital file. We can print that on a vinyl and apply it to the letter faces, and that could get updated easily. It's not messy. You don't have people out there that you don't really know, like how clean are they going to keep these letters if they're going to do update painting on it all the time. That could turn into a bit of a mess to maintain. You get paint running over the edge of the letter or who knows what. So that's one thing, I guess, kind of identifying what your vision is long-term for these. I do think that vinyl application would be a good way to go because it would keep it nice and clean, but what will come with that is cost when that gets updated. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind if you were to source, Sign Art Studio to do that or another sign company. If you go that digital file route, like, hey, we have an artist, they did this digital file, or they painted a big mural and they took a picture of it. You send it to us, we print it on vinyl, we go out and apply it. So that's one direction you could go. Again, the advantage with it is it keeps that looking nice and clean all the time, but the disadvantage is the cost that will come with it every year. And I would anticipate that probably with the size of this, from us, it would probably be, I don't know, probably $1,500, somewhere in there on an annual basis. I wouldn't pencil that in as a hard final number, but right around in there as an annual cost. If you look for us to apply a new vinyl graphic with this artwork over the top, it's probably gonna be somewhere in that range. But again, if you now have, but the first step is that we need to change out the letter faces with a substrate that can either accept paint, vinyl application, and you'd want to make that decision going one way or the other, because we can prepare that substrate in such a way that it's going to take one or the other. But typically, one substrate isn't going to be a one size fits all for that. That's kind of step one, is figuring that out. What you guys see through vision in that regard. And then the other piece of this, which Sketchwork has done a good job of showing, is there needs to be a frame built that we can attach these things to. And what they've shown there is exactly what we would have in mind. Obviously, there'd be some engineering involved. Does it need 5 posts or does it need 3? You know, what size tubing, all of that. You know, that's something we work with Sketchworks on in developing. I see that as being aluminum, just because I don't think there's a need to put steel in. This is really light. There's not a lot of wind load on it, so this doesn't need to be like, you know, we could get away with aluminum, and then the advantage of that is you never have to deal with it again. It's not gonna rust out or anything like that. So yeah, I guess in terms of, I mean, that's really it. And then also, I guess the location, can I look at that rough rendering where you show it rendered into its location? Yeah, like there, for instance, we might urge you to bring it a little closer to that retaining wall, so like equipment access for doing the actual install might be a little far reach for most equipment.
Is that right behind the skate park?
I think the skate park's to the right, I believe. That's the parking lot, skate park, or skate park parking lot? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so
And that's
it's
just,
right.
and to clarify, since my business partner, Steve, put these renderings together, that's just like a Google map image. He just
Sure.
dropped it in there. This isn't any input from the city on the placement.
Right.
But I do think that Abby had stated they wanted them up off the ground, just for, you know, for what it used to be, visible from the belt line.
Keep those punk kids away from it. We don't want
Exactly.
these vandalism. So, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it in terms of like what we see as our scope of work being. Some of answering that first question will drive some cost to a standpoint, not a ton. It won't have a ton of play in, you know, whether it's painted or it's vinyl, an application. That's not gonna have a huge impact on price, but again, something we want to know. Those letters are certainly, as you can see from those photos, not in the best of shape, but I think that's something too that we would want to understand. I think they could just use a really good scrubbing, from what I can tell. I don't think we'll need to repaint. Maybe there's a letter or two that are damaged that we can kind of, you know, like one we're looking at there. So see the side of that D, we call that's what we call a return. That return is a little bit damaged, but I think we can straighten that out without issue. I don't think they need to be repainted, but again, I guess that's what do you guys see? Do you want this brand new, fresh, clean looking? Or can we clean them up really good? And even if we clean them up, you're still gonna have a little bit of, you know, scuff marks probably from handling here and there. You know, things like that. Some of that mildew looking stuff may still be present after we scrub these a little bit. That would have a pretty good impact on price. Is do these all need to get a new fresh paint job? If that's the case, just cleaning them and painting them isn't gonna be enough. We're gonna have to sand all that surface down, prime and paint. That piece of it alone for the Middleton letters, I would say is probably, I mean, that's yeah, I mean, that's what, 20-30 hours at least, I would think, to clean up or everything. Yeah. You know, so that piece alone is probably pushing $2,500 to $3,500 alone, if you want an all-in paint job. So yeah, some of these are pretty, but again, the faces will be fresh whichever way we go. So like looking at this, the M and the I there, the visual, the result with just new faces alone is gonna have a big impact on what this looks like. I mean, I would argue some of the charm is that these are the Middleton letters. It let a little bit of that, you know, that aging stay present. But I like old signs. I like old beat up signs. That's just a personal preference of mine.
I think at this distance too, you're probably not gonna gain a lot from giving these a fresh paint job.
Right. Yep.
So,
Go ahead.
right, Luke and Dan, so I guess my main question, just to start this discussion, because again, we haven't as a committee determined like, you know, final product for this, but I think that
Right.
my immediate question is the whole yearly maintenance thing is something that I think, again, just speaking for myself here and not the committee, that we would want to avoid, because the arts committee has a very low operating budget
Sure.
per year. I think we would be looking to do whatever material would best suit adherence for long-term use. At least personally, I was leaning towards the whole wrap system we use for the utility boxes, which doesn't need to be replaced on a yearly basis. Again, we haven't voted as a committee on that, so I just wanted to toss that out to start the discussion as far as what material is best here, and that will
Sure.
determine pricing. And Meg
Just
has
to
her hand up.
clear-
Sorry, I didn't notice.
Just to clarify that, I don't believe Dan's talking about yearly updates for maintenance. His update cost would be every time you wanted to change that graphic.
Yeah. The
Oh,
artwork,
okay.
the artwork on the face. Yeah. Yeah.
The vinyl that we'll use is gonna be 5 to 10 year vinyl. It's gonna be
Yeah.
Okay,
made to
got it.
last.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I guess, and the other, as we're talking through this right now, I think we should just wipe the yearly update of the art with the vinyl option off the table and let the artist paint the sides, and then you get your paint job too. You know, you get a fresh paint job. We prep this, clean it up, and let the artist paint the sides too. You know, that
Yeah.
was, then you have, you know, you don't have to worry about it. Now, we'll have to make some recommendations on what type of paint, so that it's gonna last and it's not gonna fall off in a month. And what the preparation procedure would be for the next artist that comes along. You know, and that's pretty straightforward. Like, let's say they use just an exterior latex paint, like you paint the outside of your house. And then the next paint job happens 2 years from now. You know, you wanna go out there, you wanna wash it down a little bit, get the dirt and the grime off of it. I don't even think you need to scuff that latex paint.
Yeah.
But that would be actually like a really good solution of like, knowing should we paint the whole letter set or not, is let the artist paint the sides too, you know?
Yeah, I love the concept. I think that just speaking for our previous discussion in the arts committee was kind of the idea to give the opportunity to more than one artist. So,
Yeah.
you know, each letter a different artist.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
kind of been scarred by the elements in the past for other art installations that people, long-term
Sure.
committee members would know. So, but it's all up for discussion. I want to let Meg talk though, because she's got her hand up here for a while.
So I just want to ask a question real quick on this picture that we're seeing right now, like the bottom of the M and the bottom of the I, that's broken, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so that has to be fixed no matter what. And then
Yeah.
you're saying,
No, because this type of letter face,
uh-huh,
what you have now will not work for what you guys are trying to do if you intend to have an artist come up and do artwork on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying for the painted option that we have to have all new faces, a new metal face.
Yes, we probably look at an aluminum composite panel, which effectively, I mean, this is, you guys aren't really gonna, you're gonna see this and be like, I don't know what they're trying to show me, but it's a 1/8 inch, piece of material. It's got a plastic core, it's got a thin aluminum on the back and a thin aluminum on the face. So that allows us, now we have a substrate that, and they have vinyl specific ones, and they have paint specific ones. And we could probably find one that would work for both if we need to. But now we have a substrate that doesn't have this lip on it right here, which creates issues for your paint work or if you wanted to apply vinyl. Plus, acrylic doesn't like to be painted. You've got to use a special surface preparation. If someone were to come out and try to paint on this, it's gonna fish eye or the paint's gonna fall off literally in like a month. So the current letter faces that you have, whichever way you go, those need to be replaced with a substrate like this.
Okay,
The other one we could do is raw aluminum and paint it, but with how good this material is now and how long, I wanna say this stuff's got, we'll have like 20 to 30-year product life warranty on it.
if it's painted or not painted.
Just off the shelf, whatever we buy, so we buy a pre-finished color. Which is probably white, I would say we start with white. That's a great color, base color to start with, so your artwork that goes on top of it, it's got a nice, it's real vibrant, the color we go on top. We don't wanna do black, let's say, because paint doesn't cover well on black. White's about as good as you can start with. And it's a pre-finished material, so we wouldn't paint this material at all. We would purchase it pre-finished, ready to go. It would get CNC routed. What we do need to do is figure out, we get an attachment method, because you don't put this trim cap stuff on this. We need to figure out another method. And that's basically there'll be internal clips inside here that slip inside or they slip over the channel letter, and then there's a screw attachment to attach it to the face. So once we do that, we've got a complete closed up letter with a substrate on the face and the side that is paintable. And then the artist can come in and do their thing on top.
Okay.
With some instructions on how to prep the surface first.
And just,
Did you already provide an estimate for just replacing the faces?
Nope, we haven't done anything yet because we need to get some questions answered from you folks. Just to
Okay.
understand, I did, Lindsay, I think fielded this inquiry, right, Aaron? I think, my wife.
yep, and
Yeah.
they give us a ballpark range depending
Yeah,
on
and like-
options and how much
Yeah.
would need. And that's what Abby's numbers are based on, which I believe is a different agenda item for today, but yeah, honestly, like, we'd love to reuse some of them that are in better shape, but honestly, guys, seeing them in person, I think they just took every letter and threw it in the back of a pickup truck and did not care how they placed it, so like, every face needs to be redone regardless of material, like.
Yeah, now the can, though, a bulk of the work in that, say you guys were gonna be like, hey, should we build all new ones or should we reuse? Definitely reuse, because the bulk of the work went into the fabrication of the letter itself.
Oh, yeah,
And
we
from
want to
what
be
I
as
see-
sustainable as possible.
Yeah, and just from a cost standpoint, you're way ahead of the game there right out of the gate. But off the top of my head, please do not use this as a hard budget number. I don't see this being, if everything soup to nuts, including installation, the frame, concrete work, all that, I don't see this as being any less than 15 to 20 grand. Just from us out of the gate. And I think that's what I talked with Lindsay about.
But I
But
think Abby factored in the higher range with
Yeah.
the later agenda item on this, yeah.
Yep, and I think that higher range is safe, but again, like, if you need a hard budget, we do need to understand, again, that kind of paint versus vinyl. Do you want a full paint job on it? And then we would need to go out and get, final letter heights and all that information. Or Sketchworks even could input some information from, you know, getting those letter sizes, and we need to know what that final frame length is. Does it need 3 posts? Does it need 5? If you want a final formal number, we will need to go through those steps in order to be able to provide that.
Yeah. So personally, I think that we, you know, as a committee need to make those decisions, because I know Abby wants to submit that information, Daphne, right, for the November budget approval consideration. So we kind of have to give them direction so that by the next meeting, Sign Art can get back to us with a concrete number for Abby. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
Daphne.
And then please allow us 7 to 10 business days to produce that quote once we have all the information from you folks, and hopefully some, you know, like I said, if Sketchworks can provide that, you've already done like the 3D Scott did, or Steve did, it looks like. As long as that is, if that's based somewhat in reality with the overall length of what this is gonna come out to be, that's fine. We just put some dimensions on it and we can price from that.
Yeah, speaking for Sketchworks, since I'm one of the partners there, we're doing all our part pro bono as City of Middleton residents. So we can easily, Steve said the only thing he needed was, you know, instead of Google Maps, I can go out there and get a actual picture, get input from staff on exactly where they want it placed, and we can have, you know, the most realistic rendering you need to for height off the ground, for placement, you know, high up or down on the hill, exactly how far you want those letters moved. So yeah, we can do all of that. I would say, you know, once we have the picture, we can do it in a 48-hour turnaround. It's pretty simple. I think Steve put these together in about 15 minutes. So
Yeah, and our piece, we just need dimensions. What's that length? You know, letter heights, if they're within a couple inches is fine. We don't need this to be exact. He doesn't need to render in the exact font. But so long as that, it's for us, it's material, you know, how many sheets of material do we need? What is our tubing lengths? That sort of thing. So as long as Steve and the Sketchworks team is comfortable that this is accurate to within 10 to 15%, we're comfortable pricing a formal price for that.
okay, sounds good. So did anyone else have input? Because I think in order to, assuming we have quorum for the October meeting, I think we need to leave them with direction on materials as far as if we're intending on seeking out a painter or getting it wrapped, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
so just to be clear, for the vinyl, if we go that route, we would only apply it to the letter face. Whatever the wraps are that you guys are doing on the utility boxes, those are easier surfaces to wrap and have look final and done. You do not want to try to get in and try to wrap all the edges of these letters. That's it won't hold up, you'll get vinyl peeling away, it won't look good. So if you know the vinyl digital art on the face route, it will just be on the letter face only. So the sides would be either, if you want us to paint it, it would either be that color, or however it's left after we clean the letters up, that condition, that's what that would look like. That's why I vote paint them. Have the artist paint them, because I think it'd be cool if they're all multicolored on the letter sides and everything. I think that'd look pretty neat. And you don't have that cost that's gotta come from some budget somewhere on an annual basis to redo the vinyl or the biannual or whatever the duration would be. But then you just gotta make sure that those parameters are set, like, hey, if you're gonna take 3 letters, you gotta do the face and the sides. You know, if you want that end result, we want that to look like. I think it looks super neat to have it, the whole letter painted.
So group discussion, I'd love to hear everyone else's opinions, because I guess in my view, I think that we're not hiring just one artist to do this, but hopefully giving as many Middleton artists exposure as possible. But obviously that's everyone's decision. So what are we thinking?
Well, I'm wondering if we can start by at least learning how much it would be to clean, repair, and get new faces on all of the letters. Is that maybe a jumping off point so that we can kind of figure out our budget. Because if that's gonna take up a good chunk of our budget, it's good to know that out of the gate, I think.
Well, I don't think it's coming out of Art's budget. This is Daphne, let me know, because I think Abby's putting it on capital budget, and that's why we have a time crunch here for,
I know it's
Mhm.
capital budget, but she's asked for a specific amount.
yeah,
And
she put
so we
40,000 in. I
right,
believe.
we need to stay within that budget.
Yeah, so to elaborate a little bit on the budget, yeah, Erin, you're right, it is capital and it's coming from, our TIF district, so it is on a time crunch if we want to get it in the budget. And I think how she set it up was, we have 20,000 for, the sign, like fixing it up and installation, and then there's another 20,000 for, whatever artwork that gets, either if it's either vinyl or painting, there's 20K for that. So that's kind of how it's divided.
And do we know what date is the actual financial approval? Is it the first week in November or is it the third week?
I think it's the first week in November.
Okay.
As of right now, she's already put it in because they've already asked for, rough estimates. So Abby's already put this one in to the budget process. But we still need to have the arts committee approve that. So that's the next item. Yeah.
This is why I'm pushing for us to have a decision now, because we have a really hard time getting quorum. So if we can't meet in October, like we would need a decision now in order for her to have finite quotes and numbers to deliver in November.
I feel like it's a little rushed personally. I know she already has it pushed in, but like, I feel like we need more information. Like, is this the right location for it? We don't even have hose access over there. So if we need to go and wash it down between paintings, how are we going to do that? We need to think about the maintenance and the upkeep. There's a lot of factors I just feel like we haven't considered, and we're kind of like being rushed into figuring this out. Is this the best use of our, I know it's not our money, but like as the city, is this the best use of our money? Because I could think of a bunch of other things that we could spend $40,000 on. And like another thing about public art that I like personally is it being an experience. So you can come to the town, have a selfie with it, it's posted, hashtagged, and we're not going to be able to do that with this because it's so high up on the hill.
For hill placement, I think that Sign Art both recommended it coming down, and that is Abby's intention, is to make it like, an Instagrammable place. So I think bringing it down so that you could take a picture is the intention. Steve just arbitrarily stuck it in there for the rendering up on the hill.
And I was joking about, you don't want the riffraff messing with it. It's very durable. So.
Well, it's just like, would it be better somewhere else? Like, we haven't really scouted out locations. So I kind of feel like as like making decisions, it's too early to make finite decisions on it.
Well, I thought that we had always discussed it being up there on that hill. Like, I mean, we've discussed it in previous meetings, and I thought we had always discussed it being up there.
I don't know that we had a discussion really. It was just kind
Abby, yeah, Abby scouted multiple places for it, and this was her conclusion as the only like kind of feasible place at present time. But yeah, and I'm not trying to push people to make a decision this meeting. I just know we have a trouble getting all together. So I guess, in my opinion, we should direct Sign Art to put together maybe a couple quotes of these different options with like the optional add-on of, the washing and the pre-painted and things like that, so that hopefully we all make quorum in October and can have some more finite opinions on it.
okay.
I
So you
will
want them
say-
to just provide a quote on how much it's going to cost to
Yeah.
get the letters up to par.
Yeah, and I will just add, I do agree with Meg in that selfie aspect, because obviously you look on social media, people want to take pictures in front of cool looking things, and freestanding letters is like trendy as hell right now. Like, oh, look at me, I'm in front of the ASI college or whatever letters in the front lawn. So in that regard, there is value, there's engagement that happens. That's just my opinion. I'm not on your committee. I'm just for you guys to debate at a later time, however you guys want to do that. I do like that, being able to engage with it. We do a lot of stuff like that, and it's trendy, and I don't think it's going away. You know,
Yeah, I
it's
think
one of
that's
those
the
things.
overall goal of it. And then just
Yeah.
looking from a safety and like legal capacity, if we were to have artists paint it versus vinyl, you know, we wouldn't,
Right.
it's much easier if it's down lower on the hill and
Sure.
accessible for
That's a
cleaning
very
and
good
everything.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But yeah, I mean, for our piece, for Luke and I, as it pertains to this discussion, obviously it sounds like you guys need something more formal to include in your discussions, however that goes moving forward. So like I said, if we can get those things with a week and a half to 2 weeks heads up prior, or receive it prior to when you want it. You know, include letter heights, overall length within, like I said, 10 to 15%. Actually, you don't need to put this font in there. That's all we need to give you guys a number that we can feel confident in.
Okay, so I'm not trying to cut off any other committee members, but just to be clear here, so for you to get quotes, would it be beneficial for me to go to the recycling center, get you the exact measurements? For arts committee benefits, I can have those measurements and have an updated rendering from Sketchworks with the sign lower on the hill to give it, you know, realistic placement and, you know, decision making. And then you guys can take that and have a quote ready by our next meeting, which would be October 20th.
Yes, if we
Okay.
get that with enough time, absolutely, that's not a problem. And if you guys are having some trouble, a little delays, just keep in contact with Luke on that, so we can plan, we can, at least then we can pencil the estimating, in our schedule. And then we should be fine in that regard. We'll make sure we get it to you, but again, if something comes up and you're delayed, just keep in communication with us, and we'll make it happen.
Okay.
And then Aaron, as long, you know, what we really, so when we do an estimate like this, we're gonna look at height and length for the substrate for the faces. So long as your overall length is fairly true to life, we don't necessarily need the exact width of every letter. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? So if you go out there and you're out there with Steve, and you lay them out on the ground and hang a tape measure across the whole length, and then
Okay.
you do this kind of generic font, that's fine, that'll work for what we need.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. I see Julia's got her hands up, and I'd love anyone else's input if there's anything else they'd like in the estimate for options.
Yeah, so I guess the question was, I know it was mentioned that for each letter, like it would be nice to have like a different artist. Would having a different artist for each letter like impact like the cost of that? And would that mean it would change like how the final execution, like having it be like a vinyl wrap? So basically you'd have an artist and then their artwork's picked and then they would have it turned into a vinyl wrap is what I've seen, right?
That's one option on the table.
Yeah,
Sounds like not the option that we're leaning towards.
yeah, but what we could, and there is, I did want to speak on that, because I don't know what an artist charges, you know, and what those costs are. I'm not really in tune with that, but let's say an artist is like, cool, I'll do this whole thing and it's $4,000. And so you got 20 grand in the budget. Now you got 16 grand left for the next X amount of years. I don't know what the cost analysis is between having them do paint versus producing a digital art and then sending to us and putting vinyl on it. I would presume that vinyl option might be a little less, but I don't know. I have no idea what an artist would charge. But I think to answer your question, Julia, so long as we get the artwork in a high enough resolution image, it won't matter if there's 2 artists on it or 40 artists in one application of the vinyl, if that makes sense. So you'd have 3 letters done by one artist, 3 letters done by another, would be the same cost as one artist produced the artwork for the entire letter set. So that wouldn't impact us on our end if you guys chose to go with the vinyl wrap on the faces. We would just want to make sure that if you're doing 3 artists on it, that the artwork they provide us is high enough resolution that when you print it, it looks good and it doesn't look all splotchy.
An important note, Daphne, you'll need to, fact check me here, but don't we have to use capital funds within the year? So we can't just bank that 16 grand in Dan's example.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, otherwise we'll be in big trouble and we won't ever get an approval like this again. So hence the
Well, what-
accurate quote necessary. And I think that we need to make an accurate assessment, maybe not today, but at our next meeting of how many artists we want so that we're putting in an accurate number.
Julia, did I answer your question at all? Or was that off base?
Yeah, it did. I did think that was helpful information. I guess I kind of was wondering, like Erin's, like what her expectations of that would be with having the different artists. Like I didn't know like if that would take like a lot of time or like hiring to get artwork as like a print for the images, if that would be like separate time, like that would be just like a separate thing.
Sure. Okay.
I think
thank you.
so. I can't wholly speak for Abby, but from previous discussions on this, so I'm just going, my opinions are reflecting previous discussions here. I'm not trying to dictate this because obviously I'm a member of Sketchworks and I'm also an artist on the side, but I think Abby's vision was with that budget to have this all done within 2023. Her number in there for paying artists was just a like per artist fee, much like the utility boxes where they put it, to an open call for artists. Whether that's painting or whether that's, the vinyl printing, none of that had been decided. So I think that number is there just as a whole. We can discuss it more at the next meeting, but whether that was individual, that's just kind of what she figured the compensation would need to be in comparison for people's either time to paint the signs or the rights to their art for the letters.
Okay. Yeah, I think both of that answered my one question. So thank you.
So what do you need from us today, Erin?
I think if anyone has any other questions, or anything else they would want sign art specifically to include in their quote options, Dan and Luke, for your purposes, just being of this industry as my 9-to-5 job, if you can itemize all the options as much as possible so that the committee can either, X out or take them, that would be perfect for both of the options we're discussing.
Absolutely.
I
And
think
so
that
when we produce those, if there's multiple options, we're producing final quotes for each of those options. So it's real simple. Option A, here's your bottom line. Option B, here's your bottom line. You don't have to do math and subtract or add 2 options. So just so you guys know, that will be the format that you'll receive.
okay, perfect. And then I guess the other thing I would love for discussion purposes and voting at our next meeting would be a realistic 2023 timeline if this got approved in the November budget. So you guys knew, it was a go for 2023, just kind of the start to completion so that the committee would know the timeline as far as call for artists and, making sure that our due diligence is done and we aren't lapsing on funds if this were to be a vote and go through.
And we'll include information on anticipated project duration for our piece of it when we send you guys that quote, just so you know. It'll be 12 weeks or 16 weeks, or whatever that is. We'll make sure we include
Okay, perfect.
project duration in there.
Okay, so Michelle, do we need a vote for
I don't think
direction
we
on
need to
this?
vote on it because they're coming back with quotes and then
Okay.
we'll be discussing it in our next meeting. So I don't think that we need to vote on it.
Okay, great. Well, if no one has any further questions on this agenda item, I thank Luke and Dan for their time and
Yeah.
we look further to further discussion.
Awesome. Well, it's a cool project And, yeah, we hope it has some legs. It's cool. Love to be a part of it. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks.
Yep.
So should we move on to the
Next
third?
agenda. Mhm.
Yeah.
So can you pull that up?
Oh, yes.
Thanks. Okay, so then the next thing on the agenda would be approving the budget request for the Middleton sign project. Are we comfortable with moving forward with that approval today? Or do
Um,
you feel you want to wait until the next meeting, which will be cutting it to the wire?
My only contention on pushing it to the next meeting is if everyone on this call making quorum can commit to being present at next month's meeting, because we only meet once a month. And we did all know the obligations when we signed up for this committee. I know it's a struggle for a lot of committees, so I would hate
Well,
to
I
miss
mean,
a
I guess-
deadline and push it off.
The worst case scenario, we have called emergency meetings before when we've needed to approve something at the last minute. So I guess worst case scenario, we would have to find an alternate date that everybody could meet. But the only thing that I'm concerned about is that if we get into this and then we find out we're gonna need to have, we approve this and we find out we're gonna need to have more money down the road. And so I'm reluctant without knowing even just a ballpark if we're within this budget. I
Didn't
don't know
Abby
what
set that up?
everybody else thinks.
Yeah. Well, this is I mean, this is more than a ballpark. This is at the high end of what Sign Art Studios has already given us as their ballpark that Abby has factored in. Daphne, I don't know if she gave you that breakdown. And then there was a supply chunk in there, and then there was an artist payment portion in there. So,
And I have to say, $20,000 to paint that sign is, that could be a low estimate for an artist to come in or
Mhm.
multiple artists to come in and do it, because that would be what, $2,000, a little over $2,000 a letter. And so that's the other concern I have. Some of our bigger installations have cost a considerable amount, and I'm okay with us approving this, but then I just am I'm really nervous about what if the cost comes back as more.
I mean,
So,
$2,000 for one of those letters, though, I mean, whether that's rights to print an image on there, which is over 3 times what we're paying for the rights for the utility box per box. I cannot imagine personally as a painter. Anyway, and again, we're the city committee, so we set the price for the call for artists. So it's not like there's a negotiation on the table, I guess. So I think it's more than generous.
I did not realize that the letters were so damaged. So I guess I feel like we're going backwards a little bit. I kind of thought that they could just be kind of cleaned up and we'd have a base and the painter would come in and paint them. So it's like a lot more cost than I originally had anticipated for the Middleton sign.
Yeah, they are
but
really damaged.
I still think that we need to explore maintenance. We have an issue with maintenance in our committee. And if there's no way for water to be out there and stuff like that, like we need answers before we can vote on this. Like that's my main thing. And also, Aaron, I don't think Sketchworks should be doing this pro bono. I think that sets a really bad example. Like we should be supporting artists. Architects are artists. We should be paying you for your work. Like this is not good that you're just like giving us free stuff, in my opinion. So I think that the budget, yes, 40 grand probably could cover it. But there's just like a lot of loose ends that I think need to be tied up before I personally can make a vote on this.
Okay.
Well, and we cannot use any of this money for maintenance. It has to be spent because it's capital budget. So we cannot save some of this for later.
Daphne, could we purchase supplies for the maintenance in 2023?
I think so. If there is budget left over, you know, like the purchasing of items, I think should be fine. But yeah, just like, you know, hiring someone to go out there, that, you know, can't be covered under capital.
Okay.
And then I do want to say that, you know, we are allowed to have carryovers. So, you know, once it's in the budget, you can, you know, ask for it to be carried over to the next year. You know, if you guys think, you know, it's too soon to do it in 2023, you know, you can push it over to 2024. You know, and it's a lot easier to, you know, get it once it's on the budget to carry it over. You know, we just send it over to our finance director and he okays it, as opposed to, you know, like voting all over again to get it back on the budget and stuff like that.
Okay. Good to
Can I
know.
just run through like a quick scenario with you guys? So this is where my thought is. So we have sign art fix the letters because first of all, we can't use them how they are. That's $20,000. Then we have sketch work, architectures, build up the footing or whatever, however much that costs. Hopefully they'll charge us. Then we get it installed. Well, we have to have the painters paint it before it gets installed because they can't get up on the hill because it's too steep. Like nobody can get up there. There's a really high wall. And so then what happens when the paint starts chipping and we have no water access out there or way to clean it? And nobody can get up down that hill unless you have like a scaffolding. So they have to clean it and then repaint it. And that's going to be another, what, like 10 grand to repaint it.
Yeah, I'm 100% against the painting idea, just personally here to throw that out there. I think the vinyl is a much better option. But
I was just gonna say the same thing, that we know historically that the paint only lasts for what, 3 years, and the
Yeah.
vinyl lasts for 10. So I agree with that. But I agree with Meg too. I mean, if it needs maintenance, it's gonna be a pain to get to, and I don't know. I'm not saying we should not approve this budget, but I just think we have a lot of things that we need to discuss concerning this.
Yeah, because
And
we can't
then-
even get the guy out there with the bullet holes fixed. I mean, it's like, how are we gonna get another
I'm
thing?
waiting to hear back from someone about that.
Okay, good.
So just to answer your question about Sketchworks, like so 2 of the 3 business partners, myself being included, are long-term City of Middleton residents, happy to donate services. When I'm talking about services, this is legit, including the time we've already spent with the renderings. I'm talking maybe 2 hours of our time. If you would like for the next meeting to have us quote that out to include it, I would be happy to do that. Middleton Chaos, and then
I think it sets
I'd
a
probably
really bad
just-
precedence to ask people to donate their time and money.
it's, I understand your concern, and we can definitely do that. It will be a very marginal add to anything in the budget.
Is
though.
anyone opposed to that?
No, but I also am not opposed to in-kind donations if someone wants to donate their time. So Julia has her hand up.
So I know like kind of talking about like the cost of it, would it be a considerable cost? And I know it sounds kind of bad, like saying like don't have the artist, but like for each letter, but like what if it was more like a color block? I don't know if the studio would be able to do.
Well,
You have cut out.
yeah, we lost you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah.
Am I back? Okay, sorry, I don't know what you heard. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Something about color
Okay.
blocks is the last thing we heard.
Yeah, so would it be an option instead of like hiring individual artists for each letter, to have it be like one color for each letter? I don't know if that would save part of like the cost. I think it would still look nice. if each letter was like one color, and it would still kind of like just have like a base color for each one, like a kind of like a color scheme, either like Middleton colors or like a theme color choice. I don't know how much that would save in not hiring like an artist to do each one, or if that's kind of like the point.
Yeah,
But I
I
think the
wouldn't,
idea was to support artists with this
Yeah.
project, so I don't, that's something we can explore later. I mean, we're kind of getting into details now, and we need to be looking, I think, more at the big picture and whether or not we want to approve this budget.
yeah. If it would make per Julia's suggestion, if it would make, everyone more comfortable, we could also, I can email Sign Art Studios and say, hey, can you also make it a line item on your quote that instead of the white vinyl, if you ordered it in the Middleton colors, I have all the like Photoshop colors from Matt Amundsen from previous work we've done, with the traditional like green, yellow, burgundy-ish. I'm sure we could quote that as well, but I do agree with Michelle that the purpose is to support artists in Middleton, and we should have some type of call for artists there, even if it isn't saving as
Right.
much money.
Sure, yeah.
Anybody
Okay.
else? Have
Yeah,
any-
this is Katie. I have a quick couple questions. If we do approve this money tonight and the project ends up being more expensive, is it possible to do as much as we can in 2023 and then ask for more of the budget to finish it for the following year? I know that's not very satisfactory, but if we have to do that, is that something that is possible? And I have a second question.
Well, we do also have the rollover funds, right, from the circle that, we haven't applied to anything. We'd have to ask, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle and Daphne, but I think we had to ask their permission for the use. But so far, everyone we contacted when that project wasn't possible said to keep the funds too.
Yes, and I think the only stipulation on that was that it had to be used for a long-term art project.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there really was much else, many other guidelines toward that. And yes, everyone pretty much said, go ahead and keep the money for public art. So that would be an avenue that we could go down if we needed, say, an extra $10,000, then we might be able to take money out of that budget. I mean, that wouldn't be an impossible thing. Do we want to spend this much money on this project?
Yeah. My other question is electricity's completely out of the question up there?
Yeah, budget wise and just feasibility, I would say that. I'm no electrician, but
Because I was just wondering if there are neon artists that would want this.
yeah, that'd be cool. But I think per Abby's original comment, it would over double the budget, and I don't see any way council's approving that.
And you would have ongoing electricity costs too for the city.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that would work out.
Mhm. I guess I have a third comment, maybe. If the hill won't work, what about having the letters in the prairie in front of City Hall? It would be an easier selfie moment.
I think that, and again, you're our alder, you sit on the council meetings, but I'm pretty sure that the whole downtown planning exercise and then the space needs analysis for City Hall and library and everything kind of rules that out.
Okay.
One of the other locations I had originally suggested was that hill in like the South Branch corridor, and it's over by the police station. There's like a tiny little retention pond. So it's not like on the walking path, but you can see it from the walking path. So that was another original location we had discussed for it. Still not maybe a great selfie location, but I guess you could stand on the path and still get yourself in it. So if the hill itself doesn't work, there is other options we could explore.
So in the interest of time tonight, I know we
Okay.
can't table this issue because then it skips a meeting, right? Can't table it.
If you table it, we can bring it back the next meeting. Or you would just defer, it would be
Or
deferring.
defer, okay.
We
So
need
do we
like
want-
an extra
Well,
meeting.
first Sonali's got her hand up.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Sonali.
Yeah, I was just kind of after hearing what Meg said, I mean, when we say we are approving 40, is that just for the setup? So that has to include the maintenance cost, or if the maintenance is not going to be for the next 3 years, or would there be a need to maintain it?
So
From
the
the get-go.
40,000 does not include any maintenance. It would just be, you know, cleaning the sign, installing the sign, and paying for the artist to put, you know, artwork on it. Maintenance would have to come, you know, later on, and it would only be able to come from our operating budget. So right now, this is being paid for through our TIF, and TIF cannot pay for anything, you know,
Yeah.
like cleaning or maintaining anything like that.
Yeah, so I think what I was surprised to know is that if it's going to be such a hassle to clean up or to get somebody to paint there, then is it even the right solution? And you know, like somebody was talking about neon colors, and maybe it's expensive to build up, but then it doesn't need that much painting, or because if the maintenance cost is half of it, I don't know what it is going to be, but it
Yeah.
sounded like it's going to be, if it's that high every 3 years, then is it even worth spending that much right now? That's just my 2 cents. I mean, I'm not an expert in the
Yeah.
details of these.
So just for everyone's information, when we gave the letter to Sign Art to pick up and showed them the rest of them and entertained the idea of, you know, it really scraps the sustainability issue to just completely throw them away and build new ones, but it's over triple the cost to build new letters. So we're not going to save anything by not using them. And I think this number that we are voting on, I know this is only us approving, whether today or in October when we have final quotes back and more discussion on this, approving for Abby to even submit this. There's absolutely no guarantee that we could well get struck down by council with all the other numerous items on the list, especially for TIF funding. I personally think that the arts operating budget is so low that we, you know, for the entire purpose of the arts committee, deserve to have some type of parks, you know, public art installation that we're really lacking, and we don't really see much from the city budget as far as this goes. So whether it's this or something else, I think it's worth a try. I respect everyone's opinions, and completely see the need to get exact quotes for this. And if we wanted to defer this to the next meeting to have those concrete answers, I think that's a wise choice. I would love to entertain other locations, as Meg suggested, just to get everyone's input on this. I think that Abby had entertained multiple locations, and with her on the next call, I think, you know, she can fill you in on kind of the give and take as far as, you know, those options go.
Do we favor deferring this then?
I don't think anyone's comfortable voting on it tonight, right? And I don't want to push anybody to either.
So do we need a motion?
We
I will
need a
move,
motion.
I will move that we defer this item until our next meeting.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Can we have discussion? Is there a possibility that we could have an extra meeting before the next scheduled meeting, like an impromptu meeting?
Sorry, I
So
only
we
caught
can
half of
just
that.
discuss this project?
Yeah, I think
Um,
that would be a good idea to try to set something up in between, if we possibly can, if we can get a quorum.
Yeah, that's the difficult part. I mean, I would be available I would be available on the 29th in 2 weeks, which would give Sign Art enough time to come back with a quote per their 7 to 10 days.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I think we were gonna have to discuss with Abby a date and how we should proceed forward with, whether or not we need to have an additional meeting.
Okay,
So I think for now, though, we have approved deferring it, and so I think, we should move on to our next item and work on the details of an additional meeting if we need it with Abby.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, Daphne, can we go back to the agenda, please?
Yes.
Okay, so we have Sebastian Norbeck here to give a presentation on a water tower project out at Pheasant Branch. So Sebastian, if you'd like to talk about that project, I think that's something that no one really knows anything about, so.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm here as a Middleton resident. I've spent most of my life up on Woodland Trail, which is pretty close to the Pheasant Branch entrance on Highland Way. I'm also here because I work for an arts organization called codaworks.com. And we do a lot of public art related things. We have members who are public artists all over the world. And over the past few months, as I've started working here, I've been in charge of posting calls to artists, looking at different city websites, seeing who has an RFP out for this, an RFQ out for that. And it really got me thinking about things close to home, maybe opportunities that we all have right in our backyard. So I reached out to Abby a couple months ago, and she thought this was a good starting point, a good idea. That water tower in Pheasant Branch, it's great, but it could use something, right? Is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should be able to share it. Just let me know if you can't.
Okay. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, again, I'd like to thank you all for letting me present today, just my idea on this, and thank you for your time. I grew up in Middleton. I've spent most of my life in Middleton. I graduated from UW in 2018 with an English degree, and around when the pandemic started, I moved back home to my mom's house, which is about 500 yards from this water tower. And I go running in the conservancy all the time, and go past it, and I think, man, that is a dusty water tower. There's just kind of like it's all right. I'm sure it's great at holding water, but it maybe could use beautification. So when I started working here, I'm posting calls to artists. I'm looking online for artist opportunities, and I thought this might be one right here. So it is the first thing people see when they go into the conservancy from Highland Way. It's visible, large, not exactly in your face, but it's something you're going to walk by, and something people, maybe they don't notice it, but it's there. It's a striking visual element that everyone sees that's in your field. The Pheasant Branch Conservancy has so much natural beauty and so many different birds, plants, rolling fields, trees, pretty much everything you could want. But then there's this water tower, which like we need it there. Of course, it's a functional structure. It's important to have those water utilities and everything we need, but it's just kind of a, yeah, it's kind of a dusty tank. That's kind of how I felt about it. And when I told Abby this, a call I had to her a couple months ago now, she said it'd be a great idea to paint it, to put a project there and to wrap it like cities like Fort Lauderdale have done, that many places have done, and the only real hangup is funding. This project is one from France, from an artist called Taken, which I saw about a couple weeks after I contacted Abby. I thought, oh my gosh, this would be perfect. Something like this would be incredible to have in Pheasant Branch. It would capture exactly, you know, what's so beautiful about the place. I was almost like a little mad when I saw it. I'm like, oh, they did it first. um, and since then, I've reached out to the artist Takin and asked him about his process, how he worked on it, equipment, types of paints. He says using like high density outdoor acrylic paint worked really well for this. And he even said that he'd be happy to paint one for us. Of course, I know it's a long process and we can't just you can't just hire him straight away, but I have his contact and could ask him anything about this if you know there's interest from you all in the committee or the city in general for making something like this happen in the future. This is in France, in Gien, on the banks of the river Loire. Dad just thought this was kind of, it was almost too close to what I thought would be neat for Middleton, for this spot right by my house. Is very, very strange. So from there, I had also wanted to think, just because, you know, about the practical aspects of would have to happen to do this. The water tower, which I found this out from Abby in my conversation with her, it's not due to be painted again until 2033. So it did dash my hopes a little that this is, oh, it's an old water tower. It's ready to go. It needs to be painted anyway. We could turn it into an art project. That's not the case right now. It would be nice, but that won't make sense as a necessity until 10 years from now. What Abby suggested and some of my coworkers here at CodaWorks is that it could be a vinyl wrap, like you guys have been talking about earlier in the meeting, that the whole top of the tower, the whole bulb at the very top could be wrapped in vinyl, and some graph design could be put on it. There could be a design contest where we issue a call to artists from around Middleton, around Wisconsin, and ask artists to submit designs for it that could wrap around the whole tower. Of course, this is something that we would want to have the input of the city on, input of the Friends of the Pheasant Branch Conservancy, and of course, thinking about environmental impacts, making sure everything we're doing is safe for the surrounding flora and fauna, making sure that's okay. And there's also, again, I don't know firsthand, but just walking by it, there's a lot of electronics that look like they're on the tower, and sensors that would have to be kind of taken into consideration as well. And again, were this to go forward, the timing is pretty important. Painting in good weather, making sure there's a stretch of clear days to do this on. If it's raining out or it's too humid, there's a chance that, you know, any kind of paint or wrap won't stick properly or adhere. So it's a lot to think about. And I know I don't know that much about this, like the specifics of installing something like this, either by paint or by vinyl wrap, but it's something I started thinking about when I heard I could present to you guys. Another thing that seems like a pretty pressing issue for something like this is funding, which I also hear you all in the committee talking about a lot. I spoke with Mark Frary, the Dane Arts Director, last week, just because I knew I was going to do this, saying, hey, what are good funding opportunities for a larger scale project like this? How could this get paid for? Because it seems like, you know, things are tight. There's not like a bunch of extra cash lying around to put on a big art project. So he suggested we look at the National Endowment for the Arts, which has yearly grant cycles that are used for projects like this, especially if there's like a social development, community engagement aspect as well, which I think is possible in Pheasant Branch just because of how much programming they have and how often people in the community get out to them. The Wisconsin Arts Board, our state organization, has a lot of grants and opportunities as well, as does the county every year in February. Mark also listed a slew of other options, people that might be interested in partnering with this. I know some of my coworkers here at CodaWorks suggested that if it were a vinyl wrap, there might be some graphics companies or sign companies that might be willing to sponsor a big project like this and help with the cost to get their name some good publicity. So things to think about. I don't know. I know this is kind of a shot in the dark and just kind of something you guys may not have thought of. That might be outside the scope of what you're looking at, or something kind of new and large, and not that doesn't need to be ready anytime soon, but could be something really, really neat for the future. In my current role, I've had to think about public art a lot. I've had to look for public art calls and source public art opportunities. And there is a lot we can do here at CodaWorks to help a project like this along. We issue calls to artists all the time. That's a big part of my job, is finding opportunities for artists around the country, around the world, posting things, making sure that we all have those opportunities posted. We also have online software for call management, for accepting applications, and committee scoring. So whoever would like to score, or whoever the committee would be, would get the chance to view all the applications and evaluate them right from our site. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for letting me present and giving me the chance to talk about this. It's good to know that there are so many people in my hometown who care passionately about art and want to bring it home and want to make these things happen. I'll send these slides over to Abby, and then she can distribute them to you guys if you want, so you can have a look. And of course, you can reach out to me with any questions you have about me or my organization, or anything we do, or ways that to maybe make this happen. So this is a passion project of mine now.
Thank you for sharing. This is really a cool idea. Daphne, can you advise who we'd refer this to? I think Public Works would be the appropriate, for feasibility with all the technological stuff that's up on the tower.
Right, yeah, we would want to talk to our water utility and to Public Works before, anything of, is wrapped or painted on it. But yeah, I think it's a great idea as well. Thanks, Sebastian, for hanging out with us for so long and listening to the first portion of our meeting. And yeah, like personally, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and every time we were driving past the airport, there's a city called Rosemont, and they just have a giant rose on their water tower, and you're like, oh, we're in Rosemont now, so I think it's a really cool project to, if this were to happen in Middleton, be like, oh yeah, we're driving through Middleton, we're going to Pheasant Branch, so that would be, yeah, really cool to see.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'll send this and my info to Abby, and then if you have any questions at all for me, my contact's on here, and you can reach out to me for anything. I'm excited to see how the sign project turns out. I feel like that'll be a very neat project, and hopefully people will take a lot of good photos of it when the time comes.
Okay,
Thank you.
for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully be in touch very soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Let me pull up the agenda again.
All right, so we are back to funding opportunities. And I know that I asked that we put this close to the top last time so that we would make sure that we got it, but I am going to ask that we defer this again just for time's sake tonight.
Do you need a motion on that?
I do.
I move that we defer item number 5, funding opportunities, until our next meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so then that leaves us next with an update on the youth center project. I have everything filled. So I'm gonna run them down right now. So in October, Meg is doing create your own stickers. The kids will be creating artwork and then she will bring it and scan it and then have the stickers printed and then they'll be brought back to the kids the following month. For November and December, Rhiannon Hurley is going to be doing a printmaking class. So the first session will be actually cutting the linoleum and forming the print, and the second week will be printing it. And then in January, we have Julia doing a comics class. And then she will be doing a second part of that in May. The first part will be character development. The second part will be doing the layout and lettering. So those are in January and May. In February, we have a girl that was recommended by Maria named Ella Villa Garcia, and she will be doing an origami class. And then in March and April, Chris Laufenberg will be coming in and doing a hand building pottery class. And so we have got the entire thing filled up and I'm super happy about that.
Great.
And we have a good variety, I think.
Very nice.
So that is the update on that. Any questions about that? If not, then I think we can move on to number 7. Which is
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. My only comment is, and I can send a follow-up email if anyone wants a helper for any of those dates, let me know. I'm available for almost all the dates. I'm sad I didn't get an architect together in time for filling all of them, but we can keep it on the list for future. But yeah, if anyone wants a helper, I'm available.
We may be doing June as well, but Gabrielle and I decided to cut it off at May and tentative June because it is, I think Wednesday is the day before the last day of school. So we like kind of went back and forth on whether or not to do that. So June might come up after all. But yes, I will put that out there to everyone if they need a helper that you're willing to come and help. So
Okay, great.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
And so we're gonna just go right back to you with the youth art projects, the youth art events.
Oh,
Erin.
yeah. So as most people know, the city has hired a downtown event coordinator. So it's looking a little bit different than our past events where arts and parks, you know, kind of collaborate for like the one holiday event at a time. But what I can commit to is what Parks has authorized, which is 12 to 3 on Monday, October 17th. There's no school for Middleton Cross Plains that day, so it's great. With our authorization from several months back, have purchased everything needed for pumpkin decorating and crafting. The idea, and there's the option of bringing tools. I was pretty adamant about the liability and not purchasing sharp tools for kids that are often unsupervised to be using. So I'm focusing on the, you know, painting and decorating of pumpkins and not the actual carving there unless there is parent supervision bringing their own tools. The idea is, and Michelle and I have met with Matthew, and so this determines some follow-up, but the idea is to have them brought to City Hall after that and kind of under the underhang so they're not exposed to too much weather for a display for about a week and a half until downtown has their own little Halloween event, and then they will be voted on and, you know, prizes will be given. I've talked to Little Jim as far as sponsoring like a gift certificate for one of the prizes. I intend to talk to other businesses in the next week or two to kind of have some other kid level, you know, prizes, something that they would actually be excited about. So we need no further funds at all to cover the Halloween supplies because that's already been taken care of and that a pre-approved $500 budget, as well as the Christmas one, which is, I do not. Oh, yes, we do have a date for that. Sorry. They haven't determined this tree lighting since the downtown planner is taking over that. But Rebecca Price, who is the Assistant Parks Director, who has unfortunately left for another position at this time. I just spent majority of my day in the interview panel for her replacement. So this will, I assume, stand, but Saturday, December 17th is when the Santa Parade and the candy cane hunt is. And we thought that that would be the best timing to do the Christmas event. Traditionally, we had done that at the tree lighting the past 2 years, which is undetermined at this time. But I do have everything included in that pre-approved budget purchased for make your own ornament. I did go ahead and get an extra 100 this time because we saw over 200 kids come through within a matter of under an hour last time. And we're just scrambling to get everything together. So I thought 300 was a solid number to go with. And I will, and happy to have a volunteer, prepare those ahead of time. So that is where we're at for 2022. I can send out an email. I would be very much appreciative if I could have 1 or 2 volunteers to help with either of those events, just because they're manageable if there's a steady crowd, but when the surge of kids comes through, it kind of takes an extra set of hands or 2 just for coordinating, not necessarily actually crafting, but just kind of damage control for handing things out, cleaning things up, and coordinating traffic. So that's where we're at for 2022. I think she said remainder of 2023 on here. I don't know if that's a typo because we don't have anything for 2023 planned yet. Okay. But definitely hope to do, some further things in both the spring in coordination with Parks and Rec, and of course, like the summer pop-up events we did this year. So we'll formulate that towards the beginning of the year. But any questions as far as those events go?
Yeah, well, at the last craft event that we were at, we did, at least Abby and I briefly discussed moving these kind of things to Parks and Rec instead of being under the Arts Committee umbrella, since we have trouble getting volunteers and they have like a full staff. So that could be something to discuss for next year, I think, especially since we're going to be planning the art walk, and that's going to take like all hands on deck. So I think I would add that to discussion for further to move these sort of like kids crafts day off school thing to be covered entirely by Parks and Rec.
You don't want us to have any involvement at all?
They're just not really arts committee projects. Like they're not supporting local artists. They're more like kid friendly, and when they have days off school. And so Parks and Rec have like a full staff to help. So I mean, it could definitely be further discussion. I'm just saying like we should probably add this to discuss at a future meeting. Because we don't have enough volunteers, and they found like 1 person and we already are overcommitted. So they really do. If we're going to keep doing these, I think they need to go to somebody else.
Yeah, I completely hear what Meg's saying. I think that the collaboration with Parks and Rec here is simply their extra access to, put it on the socials and donate the space of the park shelter to date. This is actually the first time that Rebecca or, Middleton Parks actually had any kind of staff there, just because it was summer staff that are hired to cover the whole roughly 10 weeks, that school's out, and there's no programming for the last 2 weeks of summer just because they, sports start, marching band starts, everything, they go back. So we were lucky to have a couple park staff, but those are seasonal staff. So during the year, they have no one available whatsoever for that. But I do hear about how overcommitted we are. Meg and Michelle and I have, talked about this many times. It takes more than just a couple volunteers, it takes everyone. So if that's not a possibility, then we can definitely discuss not having further events, and or the possibility of just combining and collaborating, since the downtown Middleton hire through the city has their own budget and should be able to therefore provide you know, their own people to support these events instead of doing two separate events. I do not, not working in City Hall, I cannot speak to the dynamics, but I know that there is kind of a divide over who's, you know, taking these events moving forward. So while we let the dust settle, I completely hear you, Meg, and I think that's an important consideration for moving into 2023 for these events. Just to know who's responsible, and I definitely don't think it should be thrown on the Arts Committee to run the entire thing if it is a true collaboration between departments and committees.
I think it's just like really important for us to keep our goals in mind. And sometimes I think we get too stretched thin. And so some of our goals aren't able to be accomplished. And I know education is part of that. And we are helping in that aspect. We are doing things with the middle school and stuff like that. So I really think that we need to have a separate meeting outside of tonight, since we've already gone so long, on what our goals for 2023 are. And can we kind of narrow in on those? Because, you know, we haven't finished the utility boxes. Now we're talking about a Middleton sign. We have the art walk already starting, you know, the youth center project's happening. So it's a lot. And after talking to Abby, I wish she was here tonight, but she said, like, for a committee, we're like kind of weird. Like a lot of the other committees don't have all this stuff going on. So they're just voting on agenda items and not like volunteering their time off in the city. So I just think we need to,
Well, I don't think that that's just
review.
because everybody else is doing that doesn't mean I don't think that we should just be approving agenda items. You know, I think that the Arts Committee should be hands-on to a degree. We can discuss in December, I feel like would be a good time for us to discuss the things that we're gonna move forward with in the coming year.
Yeah, so maybe we could have a little note to add that to the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
add that
I think
to the
that's-
minutes and
Yeah.
inform Happy that you guys want to discuss stuff like that.
That's a great plan, because yeah, we don't want, you know, unfortunately, we have a very low operating budget. So we can't just be approving items, but we don't want our dedicated, you know, citizens around here to get stretched too thin too, so.
Well, I think, you know, there's also possibilities to opening up volunteering to people who are not on the committee. But I mean, right now, we're talking about, those things aren't on the agenda. Right now, we're just talking about wrapping up the year.
Mhm.
2022 and the events that we have.
Daphne, so if you want to make a note to both add it to, I don't know, either November or December agenda, but also make a note in there about the whole volunteer approval process, because I know there's a background screening that comes into play, which is the difficulty of anyone outside of the committee that is naturally screened. For the events that I did with the pop-up series this summer, and having to submit separate background checks for even like my coworkers that help to volunteer, so.
I think that only applies if you're working with kids though, right?
Right, but I think the majority of these volunteer events, aside from the art walk, are all kid related.
Yeah.
So there's a full, you know, and there's like a timeline for what the city needs for the background check. So just to put it in there as far as a discussion topic, so we know what we're facing when we're planning anything.
Definitely.
All right, shall we move on to art walk then?
Yeah,
Okay, so we have Aaron and Matt and I have all met once. We will be meeting again next week, so we've kind of gotten the ball rolling in discussions concerning this coming art walk. We have discussed a call for artists for our marketing materials. And we our first ad needs to be placed around the end of November. And so we need to definitely have that artwork in place before then. So we need to be thinking about a call for artists for that. And we will discuss that next week, I'm sure. The other thing that I sent Matt our budget from last year so that he can see kind of what we were spending money on and where we were at. And so we're right now are just in the very preliminary stages of planning the art walk.
Michelle, which Matt are you talking about?
What's Matt's last name?
Strassmeyer.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
The-
yeah,
the
our new
parameter-
downtown events coordinator. Yep.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So yeah, we kind of went through with him the, almost like a lessons learned since this was, largely, I don't want to say the first one, because obviously we did it in 2019, or you guys did it in 2019 and I participated, but this was the first one of this full, art fair style format. So we kind of gave them the lessons that, Michelle and Meg were really the main planners and executors of this, what was learned and what we will definitely never do again, and artist feedback. So I think we're off in a good direction. I don't think that we really need to vote on, anything or make any decisions at this point. We meet next Thursday, I believe, in the morning again.
We typically don't vote on those things anyway. The subcommittee typically makes those decisions for the art
Okay.
walk. So we're just giving an update.
Yeah, I think the whole, the call for artist thing, because we would like to both put it out there for the marketing materials and compensate the individual, right? We discussed that, Michelle. So
Yeah.
that will take a vote probably the next meeting, but yeah, the big issue here is time, which Meg and Michelle learned very well in the first preparation, that we need to get this started earlier, and that's where we're at.
I'll talk to Abby about getting a call for artists ready.
Okay.
So that we can get that going. But yeah, like I said, we're really in the preliminary stages, so there's not that much to report. Do we want to move on to utility box? The utility box update?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah,
Do you
I
have
can.
information on that, Daphne?
Yeah, I can give an update. So unfortunately, Abby heard back from NG&E and they gave, because I don't know if she updated you guys before, but before they were like, if you wrap it, we'll turn a blind eye to it, we won't have a stance. And she kind of pushed them and said, we need to have, in writing if it's okay to wrap the boxes, and they came back with a hard no. So at least right now, MG&E, we can't wrap any of their boxes, but there's still, any other, I think like the TDS boxes, I think are technically still up for grabs, any other kind of utility boxes. Abby mentioned we can look at a lot of our traffic boxes. So I think there's one, along Branch and University. At that corner, there's like a box there that's just like traffic control. And then we also discussed with Jocelyn, the library director, and she wanted her box out front of the library. It's a little smaller, but she was looking to get that wrapped, around the same time they, maybe redo their library sign. So there's still other options. And so Abby and I are going to reach out to our public works director to see if he can, show us where the traffic control boxes, any city-owned utility boxes, that are along kind of like public streets and stuff. So we're gonna see if we can get a list of where those are to get this moving forward.
Oh, that's too bad. I had high hopes.
Does that mean that Madison doesn't wrap any MG&E boxes then, or they just do it without approval?
Yeah, they just, apparently from what Abby heard from them, like they just kind of turn a blind eye if they do get wrapped. I do know the one that we were thinking of doing at Stonehorse Green, that one is like a transformer or something. So it like has to have certain heat requirements and all of that. And so that one was definitely a hard no. But yeah.
Is this the city's lawyer that's against doing it with the blind eye approach?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I sure hope we can get them done somehow, even some of them, with all the artists that were voted on.
The traffic boxes are pretty significant size.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
and they're
those still look
basically.
cool.
All right.
So is this gonna get wrapped up by the end of the year?
I'm not sure about that. I have to speak with Abby on timeline, but it sounds like you guys already have, you know, the artists and everything. We just have to find the box to get wrapped. So, yeah. So once we get an okay from our public works director, I think we can, you know, go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Ready?
Any other questions for Daphne about the utility boxes? No? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
This is Katie. I'd like to thank Daphne for staffing the meeting for us tonight, and I will move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Everyone.